Hey, welcome to Parents Under Construction podcast. We're so glad you could join us. I'm Michael Jarquin, and my friend and mentor, Dr. Ed West, are recording our conversations for the purpose of supporting Christian parents with biblical solutions to child rearing. Our goal is to provoke parents to change ahead of their children. It is what is necessary for this thing called parenting that God has mandated. Again, welcome, and we hope you get something out of these discussions. So I think for our listeners, we should announce that there's someone else in the room.
Probably so. And Chief Fong needs to know that we're talking about children being teachable.
Well, and for our listeners, it's my wonderful wife, my beautiful wife. She's here with us. She's a nanny. I do some nanny work. We've raised children. We still have children at home. And so we're going to talk about children being teachable. And her and I actually had a great conversation last night about that. The fact that she's a nanny. And really, when you're a nanny, I think there are expectations from the parents. But if they don't understand the principles that we understand or that I'm learning that you're teaching, they just see us as babysitters. And they give us commands that these are the activities that we want our children to do. But well, children, we always call them little animals. They're a little bunch of wild little animals.
I hate that.
You do. Well, at that age, it's wild. It's crazy. So,
well, you know what you're saying right now is a trait of many parents who are concentrating on getting a job done in a day. They have an agenda.
Managing through the chaos.
We got to get here. We got to do this. We got to have that done by the end of the day. Blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. As opposed to waking up in the morning and saying, today I'm going to raise my child to a higher level of maturity.
And intentional parenting.
And intentionally looking at the day as saying, this is a day that I think of where my child is and where I want him to be.
Yeah.
And what would I do today that would move him from this point to that point? I've got an agenda to accomplish, and I'm not pretending like I don't have an agenda so much as saying, I've got to do this along with my agenda. And the agenda is not more important than what I do with my child.
Yeah, and there's this book that you said you put together like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It starts out with values and the transfer of those values. And I mean, that's teaching, isn't it? When you're in front of a teacher, they're trying to transfer information to you. And I think values in a sense is, this is what we believe, and I want you to believe it
funny,
as well.
30 years ago, values, it was called family values, was a big political issue in America. There was a whole lot of conversation about the importance of family values. I never really heard anyone define family values. What exactly were you talking about when you say values? And I thought about what would be values, and what values are is just simply what's important to you. It's what's important to you. If it weren't important to you, it wouldn't be a value to you.
And as your children, you want them to have the same value as you. I think that's the way relationships work. That you share common values, and that's where it
certainly helps.
Camaraderie helps in.
It helps in friendships and relationships if you share values with the person you're looking at.
It can be certainly difficult to be in friendship, or at least a close friendship with someone who doesn't share values like you. I mean, it could be a struggle.
It is. That's true.
And so there's a page in here where it talks about conflict, and conflict being that thing that gets in the way of transferring values.
It's absolutely that the two don't go together. If you and I are not in a healthy communication with each other, in which we both accept each other and respect each other, any value that I have may be actively opposed just because you don't like me. You don't like me, therefore you don't like what I'm up to. And whatever I'm up to is what you're not going to be doing. And it has to do with the way you receive me discounts whatever values I have.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I'm glad I got it on tape. I think I'm going to put it on Facebook one day or another.
We're going to become famous.
It's what I do, Doc. Whatever he's doing, I either film him or
he does.
I take a picture.
There's an Instagram page out there of me and another guy doing real estate stuff.
Followed them everywhere.
Flipping houses and stuff like that. So she's got all kinds of recordings of us in the process, and we're goofing off and doing stuff together.
It's good stuff. People liked it.
Yeah.
They'll like you guys too. Is this Puck?
This is Puck, Parents Under Construction. And it's funny that you bring that up because, I mean, we're talking about being a teacher as a parent. We're talking about teachable children, and it has not a whole lot to do with the children. Well, it has something to do with the children, but it has more to do with the parents than it does with children. That the parents have to wake up in the morning and say to themselves, I need to be intentional about my parenting today. It was kind of like I called you when I had a situation with one of my kids.
Yeah.
And said, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to do the wrong thing in this moment. I need to pay attention to my thoughts, my feelings, and the words that I'm going to speak in the moment. And so often when we're in the chaos, we're triggered by things instead of intentionally saying, oh, I'm feeling that right now. I should pay attention to that. And that just messes everything up with our kids, our relationships.
It's wonderful that you thought through what you were going to talk about and had a kind of a plan.
Well, it is wonderful. I can't say that I've always done that or I do always do that, but I want to be more intentional about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that commonly happens in conversation with children is that we get into what are called scripts, which is a predictable back and forth with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if you thought about it, you already know what the other kid's going to say. And it's like you're reading a script for a play. You're like rehearsing for a play. It would be similar to you and me right now, as opposed to just having conversation, that we actually have a manuscript that you're reading from and I'm reading from. It says Michael's line is this, and then Ed's line is this, and then Michael's line is this, and Ed's line is this. I'm reading your line as you're saying it, but I'm not listening to you. I'm waiting for my cue to read my line.
Well, isn't that how a lot of conversation goes? In my head, I'm thinking about what I want to say. In your head, you're thinking about what you want to say, but intentional listening is like...
Have you ever had someone say to you, you're not listening to me?
Oh, yeah.
Like this person over here on the right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to remember this situation, so I'm looking at it.
This is why this happens. I think this is why that happens, is because we're in a script. We're both reading our lines one after the other. I'm paying attention to when my cue is to speak. You see me distracted, apparently, and assume I'm not listening to you. I'm actually reading what you're saying. And so you say to me, you're not listening to me. I say to you, what do you mean I'm not listening to you? I heard everything you said. You know how I know? Because it's written right here in my script. I already know what you're saying, and I'm trying to think of what I'm saying next. I know, but you're not listening to me. And you're right, by the way, that I'm not really listening to you. My brain is figuring out what I'm saying next. It's not listening to what you're saying. You see that? And you can read that on my face. You can read that on my attention. And this becomes a cue in what we're talking about being teachable. You read it on a kid's face. He's not receiving it. You can see it. He's not receiving it. All right. When I was in college, I'll never forget this. I was sitting in a class as a freshman in a chemistry class. I have no idea what my face looked like. I didn't even think about what my face looked like.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was sitting in the class like everybody else. I was probably a little bit further from the teacher than you are from me right now. And I saw the teacher pick up a piece of chalk, lean back, and throw it at me.
A teacher?
Yes. The professor of chemistry reached for a piece of chalk, reached back, and threw the chalk at my head.
Okay.
I slightly moved my head and it zipped by my ear. I think it hit the kid behind me. But he didn't hit me. Now, what did he learn from that? Well, he must have thought I wasn't paying attention. But it turns out I was paying attention. But it was my face didn't look like I was paying attention. And so we learn to read each other's body language and by facial expression, things like that. And that's where we get, you have a bad attitude, is we read it. We read it, you have a bad attitude. I can look at you right now, for instance, and see the eye contact that you're nodding your head as I'm talking to you. You can see him too. I can see you doing it. As we're looking at each other this way, you're teachable.
Yeah.
You can just see you're teachable. You're listening to what I'm saying. It encourages me to keep on talking, by the way, and I'm likely to become boring because I have to pay attention to that part too. That this is a conversation. It's not me and me talking. It's us and enjoying each other's company and communicating at the same time. And that's what you did with your daughter. You all had a memorable conversation, didn't you?
Well, we did. So I guess to start out with that was where I started with calling you saying, like, what do I do next? Here's the situation. My interpretation of it was not, I think what we talked about earlier was not that there was some big thing she wanted to drop on me.
Yeah.
My interpretation of it was pretty benign.
She just wanted some quality time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, wait, what does that say about her view of you? Who are
Well, I must be liked.
I feel like she adores him.
It must be liked.
you? can see that.
I can see that.
Yes.
And she's texted me this week too. And she asked me for some things, and some of the things she asked for are so hard. I mean, could be easy to anybody, but for me, it's difficult. And I'm trying to change that.
What do you...
Well, provide a little context is that she is for all intents and purposes, an adopted daughter.
Yes.
She's now 16, came into our house at the end of being 13. She's been with us for a little while, but my wife has 2 kids previous to us being married. And when we first got married, the oldest was 5, and he had asked her if he could call me dad. And I remember the day, like it was yesterday, him calling me dad, like nails on a chalkboard. I was never used to hearing that. It's different when you have an infant that grows into daddy and, papa, dad. But with the instant child, there are just some things where it's like, well, we need to work on that. Mm-hmm. I need to work on that. This person adores me. Well, I have to say that has an impact on me just to hear that rather than just experience it. The experience it is great too, but to hear it, that's coming out gives me I would say a softer heart.
Now, how did you get in this position? What do you think how you got in that position?
Which one?
Being adored?
Of being adored, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's unusual. I don't think I'm much of an adorable person sometimes.
I think because Michael's the man of God. He loves the Lord and he loves his family. And I think that his family sees that and knows that about him. And then when you don't get that from him, there's that void. We all feel it.
You see, and I don't even know that about myself sometimes, but to hear you say that is, I guess, confirming or assuring.
Let me ask you this. Is it empowering?
Yes, definitely.
Now, this becomes the heart of how authority works in the family. The strength of this relationship becomes why your authority works. It's not out of being scary, and it's not out of being bigger and stronger and louder and the rest of it. It comes out of this relationship of, I don't want to disappoint you. I want to make your life easier because you make my life easier.
Yeah, check this out. So I sent her an excerpt from this booklet that you wrote 30 years ago because we had a conversation about our daughter as it relates to the information in this booklet. And then she brought up a situation that she was having with her children and her families that she works for. And that relates to what a parent is, a teacher. And what you wrote was teacher and ruler. The parent is at once the teacher and the ruler of the child. The teacher instructs on the wisdom of the right way and the foolishness of the wrong way and advises, urges, encourages the best choice. The ruler requires the right way, forbids the wrong way, and demands obedience. When the parent presents himself as teacher, his activity is discipline, that's instructing and training. When the parent presents himself as ruler, his activity is the exercise of power. The wise parent will use great discretion in timing his teaching or command to accommodate the child's immaturity and current circumstance. If the child is not in a physical and emotional state necessary to receive instruction or obey command, the work of the parent becomes to establish the state before assuming the role of teacher or ruler. Meanwhile, he may lower expectations or control the circumstances and avoid conflict.
Yeah.
Like the parents really have this power that they don't understand that they have, and if they would wield it properly.
That's certainly the beginning of it.
If you're enjoying the conversation, I think you'll get a lot out of Doc's book titled How You Feed a Cat. That is, How You Feed a Cat because I told you to feed the cat and you listened to me. This book is full of Doc's experiences as a pediatrician, father, and husband. It sheds light on the role of a parent in the child's life and how we as parents need to change ahead of our children. You can find the book on Barnes & Noble's website or in the app, and the link is in the description below.
The next part of it, though, is realizing that you have years to do this with. Now, you have a child who came into your life basically as a teenager. She's already had a whole lot of life experiences without you. She's learned how to cope without you. She's learned a whole bunch of things that may or may not be true.
Or good.
But she's learned them as how she lives her life now. When you got her, right, you see a whole bunch of stuff that perhaps is not the way you'd want it to be, but you've lost 13 years of trying to fix it. And so you still have this mountain to climb of the relationship. If you start with fixing stuff and trying to live your agenda, it's not going to work. You start with the relationship.
I can see that.
And you have to stay with the relationship. As you work on the relationship, the communication is simple and intimate and truthful and accurate. You know me, I know you. I know you know what I'm saying, and I know what you're saying. Then we can get into I'm the guy who runs your life. What? You run my life? Well, yeah. That's the way it's supposed to work, is I'm supposed to run your life. Okay, yeah, but I'm 16 years old now. That's true. And I will not forget that you're 16 years old now. You're virtually out of here. And I'm not running your life for very long right now. I'm not going to get desperate about it. But I am going to keep on working on this idea for you, that I care so much about you. I've had so much more life than you've had. I know so much more about the right way to go than you do. And I want it for you. I want you to go the right way too.
Well, and what you've just said reminded me again of what I read in this booklet about transferring of values.
Yeah.
I think that's the frustration I feel when this person who hasn't been in my life since they were an infant, but adores me, doesn't take on the values that I have and I've been expressing.
And this becomes a desperation that drives you into mistakes.
Yep, for sure.
Example, let's say for instance, you have children at home that you could just simply be enjoying in a moment, or you could be taking them outside to an activity like baseball or soccer and dance and gymnastics and Girl Scouts and 1,000 other things. There are all kinds of things they can do.
Yeah.
All right. There's a place for that. There's a time for that. But the young children, taking them out of the home is risky.
Yes.
There's all kinds of things that go wrong with young children because they don't have the self-control yet. They don't have enough practice in how to stay safe. And so you go somewhere where they're not safe necessarily. They could be safe if they've simply had enough sense to stay out of the street and not run into traffic and not play around with a strange dog and not go near the lake and 1,000 other things like that, but they don't have that kind of sense. So what are you going to be spending your time doing, taking them out? Fussing at them.
Yeah.
Fuss. And that's supposed to be fun. You see it at Disney World all the time. It's hot. It's everybody's out. Everybody's thirsty and hungry. And you're standing in a line and the parents are yelling at the children. What are we doing here? Having fun? Yeah, right. That sounds like fun to me.
Right.
And so, but trained children at Disney World have a good time.
Are you a masochist?
Trained children at Disney World can have a good time.
Yeah.
But if you take them down there not trained, that's what you end up with, is not trained children at Disney World.
It reminds me of this word that gets thrown around by parents, especially new parents. Socialization. I need to socialize my kids. Well, what you're saying is that children are socialized at home first as young children. And then they learn this sort of way to interact with their peers and the other people they come in contact with.
I'll tell you what I learned about what you're saying right now. This is in sibling rivalry stuff, because that's where for most children, that's where the first socialization with a peer occurs.
Yeah.
It's with the little kid that lives in the house with me. You have a 2-year-old. And mama comes home with a new baby. Who is this? Where'd this come from? I used to be the only person around here, and where'd this person come from? I don't know. And so what do I have as a skill to get along with a peer? Nothing. I've never been with a peer before. Okay, so what do I know about being with a peer? Nothing. So I figure out what to do with the kid. And so what do you end up doing? Fussing at me. Leave him alone, leave him alone, leave him alone. It turns out that leaving him alone is the first socialization for children, is leave him alone.
So with toddlers, that I think she's got a perfect situation where she has got a 2 and a 3-year-old, or they're both 2 years old, and they don't share well. You know, you get them in the same room and they want each other's toys.
They don't know how to be. They don't know how to do that. And so you focus on sharing. Sharing is a wonderful, positive sign of love. Is sharing. But in medicine, the first day I was in in medical school. And for the rest of my life, I ran into the first principle of medicine. You know what it is? First, do no harm. I learned that over and over is first, do no harm. Don't give offense in what you're doing and then get your job done. Don't cause trouble with what you're doing and then get your job done. Don't make things worse and then get your job done. And this becomes a principle in our interpersonal relationships, is I have to mark how I interact with you by my manners, which constrain me in expressing myself. I have to constrain myself, and a lot of this becomes habit that I just practice enough to where I'm not even aware of doing it. But many times you become aware of manners. An example would be, let's say, for instance, that we were sitting at a round table right now, and the door opens, and this guy sticks his head in the door and says, the governor is here. He's looking in this building right now, and he would like to come in this room for a minute. Would we change in what we're doing here? Would we change?
I think so.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it wouldn't be like we are right now. Wait a minute. I gotta tuck my shirt in, or maybe we should stand up, or maybe we should turn off the.
Got to think about how I'm going to shake their hand.
Yeah. You're thinking this way. You're already thinking about what is proper around a governor. I don't know. I've never been around a governor, but whatever is proper around a governor, I got to think about it. And so the governor walks in the door. He's not here to see whether we're proper. He wanted to meet us. He wanted to meet us. He wanted to have a conversation with us. That's why he's here. But you know what? If we don't act properly, you'll notice it.
He will notice it.
He will notice it. And you know what? It'll interfere in what happens in here next. Whatever happens in here, it'll interfere in it. And if it's on video, we'll see it. We'll see it on the evening news that we didn't act properly in front of the governor. And so training children to act properly begins with constraining themselves.
Teaching them self-control.
Self-control is it's all it is self-control. All right. We have authority to do that as parents. And we use this authority by saying no.
Yeah.
Okay, so we say no, and the kid does it again. We say no again, the kid does it again. We say no again, the kid does it again. We're not making any progress here. And the reason is we're not training him in what we're saying. We're just saying it. We're just correcting him and correcting him and correcting him. Maybe we get into, I don't know, something worse, like go to your room or whatever it is. We're still not training him. He needs to be trained in self-control.
You had given me an exercise to do, and I haven't done it yet with two toddlers, 3 and 4 years old. Then we have an issue at bath time with all the toys in the tub and fighting over toys, particularly the toothbrushes. There's like 6 or 8 toothbrushes. I don't know why they have that many toothbrushes, but they want the toothbrushes in the tub with them. And it's become a point of conflict. So I just removed the toothbrushes. It got rid of the situation.
That's a simple answer.
Certainly. Yeah. So I brought the situation to you, and you had given me an exercise. And I remember it being something like, find something that they like. Maybe it's M&Ms, and have 2 separate bowls on the tub and give them the toothbrushes. I don't remember it all, so you'll have to fill in the blanks.
Okay. It depends on the age. It depends on what your purpose is.
It seemed like a risky endeavor.
Okay. And maybe I did give you good advice that time.
Well, I don't know. I just, because I'm the one in the situation, I can foresee the possible outcomes.
Okay, first of all, the tub's a bad place to train children.
Yeah.
It's slippery.
Well, you said not to put water in there.
Yeah, it's slippery in the tub.
And leave them in their clothes, so that would help.
Yeah. Because we associate the tub with getting wet and slippery, sliding around and getting clean and getting out and all the rest of it. That's not what they're in the tub for. They're in the tub to learn how to behave themselves.
Yeah.
That's a different reason to be in the tub.
Yeah.
It'd be similar to, I'm going to teach you how to drive a car. The first thing you do is open the door and sit in the seat and buckle your belt. I'm not driving a car. I know that. But if you don't do this, you'll never be driving a car. You've got to do this first. You put your hands on your wheel. You put your foot on the brake. You put your hand on the key, right?
Right.
These are all things about driving a car. You adjust the mirror. I haven't gone anywhere. I know. But this is all part of driving a car. And you have to learn how to do these things. And so then, if your purpose is for a 2-year-old, or let's say a 3-year-old.
Yeah, 3 and 4 years.
A 3-year-old, I don't want you to get a toothbrush in the tub. Getting rid of toothbrushes is an easy answer. Because a 6-year-old won't do that. A 6-year-old has enough sense not to do that. You don't need to tell a 6-year-old not to do it. He wouldn't even think of doing it. A 6-year-old would put a frog in a tub or put an alligator in the tub, but he wouldn't put a toothbrush.
Well, the issue becomes just fighting over the toothbrush.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. You need to see what your issue is.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast. We hope that you've gotten something out of our discussion. If you've enjoyed listening, please support us by subscribing